Welcome everybody to the Holdsworth Homestead. It's about noon on April 27th, so we're almost into May. So I want to do a little video before it starts getting really hot and all my fall, winter, spring crops start to wilt from the heat, because everything looks really cool right now. So figured I'd do a whole system review since I haven't done that in a while, just to show you how everything works. This tank in the ground is called a sump tank. That is the lowest point in the system. That's where everything starts and returns. So I have two pumps in here. The black one is the main pump that takes the water through a bead filter for mechanical filtration to get out some of the fish waste. And this white pump is a backup pump that I can run either while I'm doing my backwash so I won't lose a lot of water, or the black one's a 240 volt pump, whereas the white one's 115 volt. So in the event of a power outage, I can run the white pump bypassing the bead filter on a generator, whereas I can't do that with the main black pump. So here's my bead filter, and I backwash my system about twice a week because I've got a very large fish load for this setup. And then in here we've got the blower that's supplying the air to the fish. The blue tank that's elevated off the ground is kind of like my nursery tank. I had a bunch of tilapia in there, removed them about a week or so ago. I'm hoping I can get my koi to spawn. It's right around the time last year, late April, early May, that they did their spawning. So I've got a mat in there for them to lay their eggs on. I've got 4 fish tanks. The first one and the third one have tilapia. The second and the fourth have koi. So you got to get a look at the big old tilapia. A lot of these guys are original to the system from 2021, so about 4 years old. 5-6 plus pounds in here. Good sized fish, pretty good stocking density in there. The next tank is going to be my koi that I hatched out from babies last year, and a lot of these guys are now 4, 6, 8 plus inches long. You can see a lot of different color patterns. Nobody's eaten today, so that's why they're all coming up looking for food. But these are all last year's fish that are right about a year old. Very cool. On to my next tank. We've got some tilapia in here, and these plants that are kind of going crazy right now are what's called hubam clover. And you can see I planted these for my bees. The bees are all hanging out, a bunch of love bugs too. So here's my other tank of tilapia. You can see there's a couple different sizes in here. Everybody's doing good. And then my last tank is going to be my large koi tank. These guys are always a little bit shy, but these are all the big ones. I don't even know weight-wise what these guys are, but I mean, there's some 2 foot plus long fish in here. That's the biggest one in the tank. She's huge. So hopefully next week or so, get some babies, or some eggs anyway. See what happens. And then this is pretty cool. So it's noon right now, so my pumpkins look like they're melting. And at first I thought these were polar bear pumpkins that I planted, but then I realized that based on the shape and color, these are what are called Georgia Bulldog pumpkins. So developed by the Georgia Bulldogs up in Georgia at the university. And this is actually one plant. And you can see it's got pumpkins all over the place. So there's one, there's a baby, there's one, a few more here. So tons and tons of pumpkins. I wasn't expecting to get this much productivity out of these pumpkins. You come back early in the morning and these will not be wilted. They'll be standing up, but once you get to, like I said, about noon, they're gonna look a little bit sad. So anyway, kind of back to the filtration on the tanks. Each 2 sets of tanks come into a cone bottom swirl separator where the solids collect. And then once a day, I'll use the valve on them to get rid of that solid waste, and I'll dump that on my fruit trees. And then they go from there into a biofilter that's got media that converts the bacteria from ammonia to nitrite. And then the 2 tanks meet up in this tank here and then go down these 3 plant troughs underground and then over to those 3 plant troughs. So you could say I've kind of let some of my volunteer plants go a little crazy here. I mean, the pumpkin vine is coming all the way over. These are like some yellow Everglades tomatoes. And these things just grow all over the place like crazy. They're super prolific. Not a big tomato fan, but I save them for chili, give them to friends. And I really need to get in here and prune this to give myself some walking room. There's another big old clover plant. But anyway, go around and check out the plants. I should mention that right now we are in a severe drought. I just saw on the news the other day that we're in the worst drought conditions since 2017. There's a burn ban in effect right now, so it is very dry. I don't even know the last time that we've had rain. It's been a couple months. So my fruit trees, I'm having to go around and dump fish water on all the time, getting some brown crunchy leaves. The grass crunches when you walk on it. I haven't mowed in weeks. Might do a little bit of that today. But anyway, my point is, severe drought conditions for months, and my aquaponics system is, of course, thriving. Again, I've got kind of some volunteers. This is a Lippia plant. The bees like that. Started out in my system and it went too crazy, and these ones that are remaining are all growing in the ground. There's some more of those yellow tomatoes, a few of those guys. And then there's some jewels of opar and Suriname spinach hanging around. This is actually a cool plant that's a weed, but a useful plant, which is plantain. I'm able to harvest the leaves and make plantain salve out of that. So there's a few of those volunteers hanging around that are not growing in the system, but actually outside of it. Here's another pumpkin plant. This one's coming from the system. And then there's a shot of the pumpkin patch. Again, you see more pumpkins. This is a Kikinda gourd, I believe. Grew some of these to be as tall as I am. I'm 5'4", so they grow pretty massive. There's another one up there on the shade cloth. And these are plants that I started at some point last year, and they didn't like the cold too much, but now they're actually coming back. This on the edge here is a squash plant. I was trying to see if I could find any baby squash on here, but maybe not. This is a rampicate squash. There's a tiny baby one. Just saw a ladybug. And that squash does really well over the summer. My greens here, let me switch the camera back around. My greens here are just doing absolutely phenomenal as always. But once we get into June, July, they're going to start getting attacked by bugs and aphids and caterpillars. You can already see, some caterpillar holes on some of these guys, which is why I wanted to take a quick video. Different varieties of collards. These are mostly collards. The big longleaf ones, like this guy, that's 1,000-head kale. These are also the 1,000-head kale. I mean, these ones that are growing are almost chest high on me. They're so big. Sugarcane, that one's also growing outside of the system. Now that it's starting to get warmer, those few plants on the edge, we've got some peppers, because those will do well in the heat. Up behind are all those yellow Everglades tomatoes that are going crazy. Still got some lettuce going right there. Probably some random ones throughout, but it's going to be really too hot for lettuce soon. We're starting to get around 90, 91 degrees is the high right now. Trying some new plants to see about heat tolerance. These are a red or pink amaranth, and then somewhere hanging around I've got white amaranth. There's a couple more. So started these pretty recently. Those are supposed to be heat tolerant. You can eat the greens and the stems. I also started some red giant celery and some pink celery, and then some giant kohlrabi as well. Those aren't necessarily super heat tolerant plants, but we'll see what they do. Got some Swiss chard going in here. Rainbow chard, that's a white one. That's a pink one. Still have some cabbages hanging around. That's one of my favorite winter crops to do. Got another one over here that I really need to harvest. And then there's another one over there by the blocks. Got some mint in here. I always like making mint tea. These are my beefsteak tomatoes up top. Don't ask me what variety, I can't remember. I planted a bunch and then whatever survives. There's some smaller ones there. I think those might be Better Boys. And then there's some bigger ones over here. Some kind of beefsteak, but I don't remember what I planted. There's another, let's see if you can see it. There's a good size beefsteak over there. That one will probably be over a pound by the time it's red. There's a couple back behind the trellis. So it's a good time of year for tomatoes right now. But again, starting to get into June or so, it's gonna start to be too hot for those guys. So just taking a look around, volunteer Suriname spinach, the stuff with the purple leaves. And then this is lemon balm. That's a great one for making tea. And then of course I've got my big giant hibiscus plant up here in the middle. This thing's gotta be a solid 6 feet tall. The roots on it are probably 6 inches wide coming out of the trough. I really need to take this thing out, but it's basically just good for pulling nitrates out of my system, which I definitely have an excess with all of my fish load. So that's kind of the tour for today. Just wanted to go through before it gets to be summertime and show off all the crops right now. Love these big collard greens. They kind of look like flowers when they're fully grown out like that. And I'm gonna go grab some scissors, do a big harvest, and make some soup for dinner. Thanks for watching.